I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, calling to order our August 25th board meeting, and say yay if you're here. John Elkins.
Here.
Stan Toro.
Here.
Bill Simonelli.
Here.
Grady Stevens.
Yes, I'm here.
Marilyn Stout. Here. Todd Reinhardt.
Here.
And myself, Kathleen. Thank you. This evening we have a very light agenda, so we will have open comments at the end of the agenda after we adjourn. So if anybody has additional meeting questions, discussion you want to have, we're here for you tonight.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move that we have that after every meeting.
No.
I'm making a motion that we have it after every meeting.
How about a compromise and have maybe 30 minutes before and then 30 minutes after if there's time? How would that satisfy?
I'll amend the motion to that if you like.
And I'll second. And under discussion, the Cape Coral City Council has its every week, where the citizen input is 1 hour prior to the meeting's call to order, and then it's 1 hour for citizen input. And that keeps, oh, I'm sorry. That seems to work, and there are only a few times where there are issues where there are a lot of people that want to speak. Now, it is true their meetings start at 4 o'clock instead of our 6 o'clock, but they also give an hour where I'm suggesting maybe a half an hour. So it's just a suggestion rather than having citizens sit out here for maybe a couple of hours and then leave, as happened last month. I think quite a few left that wanted to speak. And so this way, if you allow prior to our business discussion, then that satisfies both sides.
So shall we restate the motion?
Restate them? Well, I'm seconding John's motion, but it would be to allow 30 minutes prior to the start of our business meeting and 30 minutes after if there is time.
Do you want, I have a question on the motion. You want 1 hour at every meeting, 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after?
Well, 30 minutes after if there's need, if there's time. It's just, I want our residents to be allowed an opportunity to speak. And last month, as we all saw, halfway through, a lot of people left. And I think having a town hall once a quarter is not enough time.
Bill or Grady, do you have any comments?
I'm not entirely convinced that 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after is warranted, but I would like to compromise and see something done. So I think that I would probably be agreeable to the 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after. And if we see that it's not something that's needed, then it's something that we could change later.
And certainly I can agree with that. If there isn't anybody here that wants to speak, then we don't do it.
Sure.
It's only if there are individuals in the room that want to speak.
That never happens, Marilyn.
Bill, did you have any comment? Bill, are you still with us?
Sorry, I had to get off the mute. I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is on this would each speaker be limited to a certain amount of time? Because one speaker could jeopardize the 30 minutes before or after.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
3 minutes per speaker.
Yeah.
Then I think, along with Grady, I think it's something we can try to see if it is useful, given all the other forums that we have for feedback. And see if this is a useful tool to get some dialogue going with the community.
Stan?
Don't we do the 3 minutes up here at the beginning? What's the difference?
But they were only allowed
Agenda topics
agenda
only.
items, not just to speak on any issue that they might be concerned with.
Yeah, everybody agrees on 30 before, 30 after.
That's adding an hour to our meetings.
Well, it adds 30 minutes, and then the extra 30 if time is available. That's what the way the motion reads.
Okay, no, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that statement, if time
Isn't that
allows.
right, Marilyn? Yes.
So prior to the meeting, everybody's going to have 3 minutes to talk on the agenda topics, and then we're going to jump to open.
No, not
No,
agenda
no
topics.
So
agenda
no
topics.
more
No.
agenda topics is gone.
Yeah, just topics, anything.
Yeah, let's, again, this is Grady. Let's give it a shot and see what comes of it. Let's see how things work. If it gets out of hand, then, if it becomes a negative issue with the continuity of the board meetings, then, obviously, the important thing is the board meeting. But let's give it a try and see what happens.
Okay. My thought is that we certainly want to be able to run a board meeting, but I've heard from a number of residents, they don't feel like they have adequate voice. And so to limit them to only once a quarter, to have that be an hour and have that not even be televised seems to be quite restrictive and not open enough. So that's why I made the motion that we have people talk on any topic they choose, and it be done before the meeting so they don't have to wait through the whole meeting if they don't want to. And Marilyn added that we'd have extra 30 at the end if it's available. So I really think this is something that our residents would like us to do.
And I think it adds to transparency. I think it's important to include our residents on board action and find out before it becomes a big problem. We might be able to satisfy the majority of complaints or even misinformation. We all know there's misinformation out there. So if we address it, then it goes away.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
This
Grady?
is Grady. Aye.
Okay, I'll give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome. Do we have any resident comments tonight? Let's start it now. Any questions? Nobody. Yep, non-agenda too. Why not? We just made the motion and approved it.
Since you guys started it, I'll jump on it real quick.
You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
That works for me. Works for me. My only question, exactly to where you're pointing. So if we've got 30 minutes at the beginning of meetings for agenda or non-agenda items, we're going to keep to 3 minutes. Will that simply just be the way it has been, first come, first serve, or will you prioritize agenda items specific? Because I guess my concern would be if you got, say, 15 people show up, but, I'm 12th on the list, I have an agenda item that I wanted to speak to. Speaking to it at the end of the meeting probably wouldn't suffice. So I don't know if you would perhaps want to prioritize items that are agenda specific, and then the non-agenda items fill in the first 30 minutes, and then you have the additional 30 minutes at the back end to facilitate the non-agenda specific items. I don't know, just a thought that I had thought about.
Sounds reasonable.
That way it gets your agenda items, before the agenda is spoken to.
Asosha has a comment.
So I think it's best if we do the agenda items at the beginning of the meeting for 30 minutes and then all those non-agenda items at the end of the meeting.
No, that's not
That's not the motion. We will have agenda and non-agenda items at the beginning. Yeah.
That's not the motion.
I relinquish the mic.
Sit down.
Recognizing Mr. Daybott.
I mean, I realize that, there's agenda items that people may want to discuss, but a lot of times, after an agenda item is discussed by the board, residents may have comments on that. And they may need time after the meeting to bring those comments up. So I think you can't limit what type of comments can be held up front versus at the end.
And that's what the motion is.
Any other residents? Okay, we'll move now to approval of the regular board meeting minutes from July 28th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion, concerns? Bill or Grady?
No discussion or concern from me. This is Bill.
None for Grady.
Okay. All in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye from Bill.
Thank you.
Aye from Stan.
Aye from Grady.
Okie dokie. Next up, board president report. Everybody may have noticed the Trafalgar Gate has been installed, and we are still researching on the SUV that hit the gate. That's still ongoing. Sidewalk repairs are scheduled for September 6th through the 9th, and we will be installing a car reader for the gym in the lobby for those people that may enter through the pool restrooms, and that's for safety and security. We're unable to add to the yoga room at this time because it would require major equipment change through Envera, and it was several $1,000s. So they do say that that is on its last leg. That may be something that we have to look at that piece of equipment for the budget 2023 possibly. We will soon see a new lobby desk in September, October, as the current one built by our resident Ernie has been well used and now showing signs of wear and tear and requires replacement. This will be funded with the decorating and furniture of the budget for the renovations. And we're waiting on the soundproof panel bids to still come in here for the Pelican room. If enough monies are available in the end, then we will add a handicap auto door opener to the Pelican building that includes the restrooms, and we'll address that at a later board meeting. I began working on closing the CIT bank account that holds approximately $1.4 million of our reserves on July 8th. There was so much red tape and numerous hoops to jump through. It became a very painful and contentious process between myself, First Services Residential, as they were still on the account, and CIT bankers. I finally received notice today that the check has been written and sent via FedEx to Associa Finance Department. We had a morning and evening meet and greet social to introduce Chuck as our new GM to residents. And once all snowbirds return, we will hold another meet and greet at that time. I attended an Associa event recently with a local law firm that made a presentation on HOA law. John was there and Chuck was there as well. And one item of interest was reviewing our CCRs and bylaws. They suggested to remove any declarant developer information from our docs after turnover, so that may be something that we need to look into in the future. And I spoke with Dave Ott about that with Communications Committee. And there are concerns regarding rental of homes here in Sandoval, and some homeowners are not following rules for renting. Therefore, I've asked 3 resident attorneys to review our documents and make recommendations, which then would require our HOA attorney guidance on the recommendations to ensure that they align with our docs and we remain within the Florida statutes for our policies and procedures. Tree trimming will be done by the pool soon, and of course, as usual, the pool will be closed during that time for safety reasons. The Board of Directors and residents would like to thank Ms. Marilyn Stout for her assistance in moving along our city permit for pool repairs to move the pumps out of the pit that control the slide and the kiddie features. And we are also replacing and repairing items required for our next Department of Health inspection, which is the first week of September. And Chuck is continuing to work on the bid for remaining repairs and purchases required to get us up and running for the long term. Adding to that now, unfortunately, the speakers that provide the music around the pool are needing replacement. This will be included in the pool equipment bidding process. That process has been very arduous, as commercial pool contractors are not in abundance, nor specific to our needs. And one bid has been received, and it was a rather six-figure, very large 6 figures. So that's being reworked and challenged and discussed by Chuck. Let's see. I did receive legal advice on 2 items regarding adjourning the HOA meetings, because there seems to be some differing opinions on that. So the president may adjourn the meeting once all agenda items are addressed, no motion is made, and no requirement for a vote. And the president can make motions and resolutions and can second motions in the HOA board meetings. Now that we have our new GM in place, I'd like to address a chain of command for resident issues, questions, and concerns. There have been numerous resident concerns addressed with regards to years of issues with previous GM communication, lack of follow-through, just to name a few. The role of the board of a homeowners association serves and represents residents' best interests in the day-to-day business of the association. The relationship between residents and board directors is interdependent, as one doesn't exist without the other. And in some cases, residents can feel entitled to their board director's time and attention, and sometimes this is perfectly appropriate. But on occasions, residents may overstep and encroach on board directors' personal space and overstep boundaries. At other times, a board director may be offering their personal opinion on an issue or policy that does not necessarily represent the board majority. It's a fine line that can often get crossed for good intentions with poor results. In order to maintain respect and courtesy between the board of directors and residents, it's important for communities to establish an accessible chain of communication of which everyone is aware. It is recommended that all communications go through Chuck first, which allows him to filter issues to the board as necessary. This is especially helpful due to the massive volume of email traffic, and also allows documentation of everything that transpires. The more adept and open communication we encourage of the management company, the less burden will be shouldered by the board. Most of the time, issues can be resolved by the GM with minimal involvement of the board and simply communicated with end results. The only time the board truly needs to be brought in is if a decision must be made regarding policy, finances, or a certain project needs to be executed. If a board vote is required, then we'll put that issue on the agenda for a future board meeting. But 9 times out of 10, the GM will simply address an issue as it comes and inform the board as to the result. And it makes sense for the initial point of contact for residents to be the GM, as the GM and staff are usually on top of the community's issues and armed with the resources to deal with them and properly document the issues. I recommend that everyone place their concerns or complaints in writing with the understanding that only those issues submitted in writing will be addressed by the GM and brought to the board's attention when necessary. The best mode of communication is through email. This usually forces us homeowners to clearly explain our problems while providing the GM the ability to make a site visit to examine the issue and or meet directly with the homeowner when necessary. Likewise, it gives the GM the ability to seek clarification as needed. Board directors can then avoid being forced into making an on-the-spot decision, which might prove incorrect or inappropriate. When directors feel the need to respond on the spot, it can cause additional problems. Depending on the issue and whenever possible, having a complaint and response in writing helps to avoid misunderstandings. As always, if any resident has addressed management and is not satisfied with the outcome, please reach out to me and my fellow directors with your concerns, but keep in mind there are limitations in resolving issues, as our legal counsel advises against some interactions by board directors. General Manager's report, Chuck?
Can I comment on your report, please?
Sure.
Because it was mentioned that I helped with the permitting of the pool, and I want everyone to know that in actuality, it was our mayor. And
I'm sorry I didn't make that clear.
And
I'm
I
sorry.
really want to thank him. And I did think about going to city council during citizen input time, but then I thought, if I did that, everybody in the city would be contacting the mayor for some help on some issue. So I didn't do it. But I do want everyone here to understand that the pool contractor put in a permit for a new pool, not pool repairs. So consequently, that was the reason for the long delay. And what the community development did was they corrected the permit rather than sending it back and starting the whole new process again. What they did was just correct the permit and issue it. And it was all due to our mayor, John Gunther. So I just wanted to make that clear.
That's good. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment too. That is that, as you know, all residents can attend any committee meeting. So although we don't want things overburdened by people just coming up talking to everybody, we do want as much input as possible. So attend committee meetings. Know that there's a board member liaison to every committee meeting. The more input and help from the residents we can get, the better. So please communicate. And if it's something you really want, as Kathleen says, please write it down so we got a record of it. Thank you.
Chuck?
Well, that's a tough act to follow there, but I do have a short report. It might be a little bit redundant. It's been a little short of 2 weeks. I've gotten to know some of the resident owners, a lot of the staff. I've met with the majority of the vendors. I have more vendors to meet with, and not to say that I've hit the ground running as far as the major issues with pool, landscaping, gate strikes, lakes, all of those things. And to John's point, by attending some of these committee meetings, it was me who listened and heard that Marilyn actually was one time on the city council and said, boy, I wonder if I can leverage that resource there. And it's not because I knew that. I found that out in a committee meeting. So to your point, the more committee meetings you can go to, you learn a little bit as to who's got the influence and who doesn't. But thank you. I want to thank you for it.
And additionally, I forgot to mention, but we also get a rebate of $154. I mean, that's not a lot, but it's still a rebate.
That's wonderful.
The weeks to come, again, is getting my arms around some of these big problems that we have out there. There are some good resources out there that I'm working with to try to conquer some of these. I'm reaching out to vendors that I've known from the past and also that I have no relationship with. I'm talking to other property managers and getting recommendations from them to see what we can do to get the ball moving. The worst thing we could do is sit and not get things accomplished. I hope to communicate whatever status I have. I hope that we're always moving forward, but if we're not, I'm going to tell you the reason why we're not moving forward. And Jack will tell you, the pool, some of the issues with the pool are just not finding vendors that are able to deal with this size pool. So that is my focus going forward, is to get these problems taken care of. On a more holistic approach, it is a time of the year where we have to start thinking about the budget 2023, and that's still a rather large task that we need to pull together. We've got a new treasurer, you've got a new general manager. We're going to work our way through this. We're going to get all the information that we need from the budgeting committee and finance committee, and we'll work through that. As Kathleen said, the meet and greets were great. I really got to meet a lot of people. I feel bad for the second meet and greet. I was talking to some people, and some of those dark clouds that you see in the back there, and some thunder kicked in, and all of a sudden the room emptied out, and I kind of felt like I missed the opportunity to meet everybody. But for those of you who are not here in Florida, I will have another meet and greet towards the end of the year when most of the snowbirds are back, or come visit me in my office. And I'd like to meet as many residents as we possibly can. So that's my report, and I'll stick with that.
Thank you. Old business, I placed back on dissolve strategic planning. Strategic planning committee was in fact inducted in a past board meeting, so it's a formality that we will dissolve the committee until we regroup after the reserve study is completed. So a motion to dissolve the strategic planning committee.
So moved.
Well, seconded. You seconding it?
Second.
Thank you, Marilyn. Any questions, discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody?
Aye from Val.
Anybody?
Aye from Grady.
Anybody against? Okay, thank you. Finance committee. Bill, you are up, and we need to put the screen down. We just need a minute to.
Yeah, make sure I've got this working. I've got the cable hooked to my computer, and I have to pull it, slide up as we go.
Okay. So while John is pulling the charts together, am I still able to speak for a couple minutes while we're getting that ready?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So hopefully what we will see in the next couple of minutes is I've been working on trying to pull together a summary of our finances over the past month, partly to help me understand the complexity involved with all our finances, but also one of the things that I felt as an owner before I joined the finance committee and then became treasurer was that there needed to be a way to sort of take all this information that we get from Associa and try to put it in a structure that communicates to the residents exactly what is the health of our finances without trying to give everybody an eye chart test by pouring through all the numbers. So what I'm doing is trying to pull together some key information, summarize some key data, and walk through and try to highlight where I think are some of the areas that we're good in, and one of the areas that has already been mentioned that we need to continue to focus on. So, John, are we ready to go?
Actually, no. I don't have the image on the screen yet, and we're working on it. I have the cable hooked in. This is not the first time we've failed to do that.
Okay, well, what I'll do is I will, just in the interest of time, I'll start working through the information.
Here we are. We're on.
We're on, okay. So you're on chart 2?
No, I'm on chart 1. Let me get to chart 2.
Chart 1, my great graphics. Okay, let's go to chart 2.
Okay. Chart 2's up.
Okay, so at the top level of the budget, one of the things that we will see is that Sandoval is in good shape both at the income level and at the expense level. As our president mentioned a few minutes ago, we've made progress in getting all our reserve funds moved into the Fifth Third Reserve account. We have online access to it, and we're able to track it on a proactive basis. And the third key thing is that, by and large, our expenses are in line with the approved budget. There's some expenses that were put into an incorrect accounting budget, which create some distortions in the numbers, but at the top level, we'll see that that we're, except for landscaping, we're in pretty decent shape. We talked about the transfer of funds. The sales center sale proceeds have been received for $568,959, and although there is some detailed accounting going into the expenses, as of now the expenses total up to be $166,781, And when the Finance Committee met earlier this week, we unanimously recommended that the proceeds be put into our reserve fund. And I know that we've been working with Associate to make that happen over the next week.
Hey, Bill?
Yes.
You got the sales price of $568. It really was $600. That's the net price after paying commissions and fees, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So that's in terms of what got deposited.
Right, okay. Just wanted to clear that.
Right, sorry. Okay. Working with the general manager, Chuck, one of the key things that we'll be doing is to be more proactive and looking at expenses and forecast changes. Everybody is dealing with changes to their expenses. I mean, I've been hit with some pretty incredible increases in utility bills, and we're seeing fuel charges and things like that. So it's important not only to say how we're doing against the budget as it was approved, but what we think the expenses are really going to be so that we're not surprising everybody at the end of the year. It's been mentioned by our general manager that landscaping needs a lot of review, and we'll be continuing to work on that. And one of the key things we'll be looking at is starting to work on the 2023 budget. Next chart, please.
Okay, I'm slow. Be careful.
Okay.
Let me. What's that? It's number 3. Yeah.
Number 3, yes.
July financials is the title, right?
Yes.
General comment.
July financials, general comment. So our year-to-date, we have received $2.6 million in operating income, and we have spent approximately $2.1 in expenses. In terms of our expenses at the top level, we are green. And let me just spend a minute talking about the health indicators. That's the bubbles at the right side of the chart. I try to use those as sort of a visual indicator in terms of how I look at where the variance is going to be towards the end of the year. Green means that we're in good shape. Yellow means that we're projecting a variance up to minus 4%. And red means that we have a variance greater than minus 5%. So at the top level, we are in good shape. As I alluded to earlier, we did find two issues. One was related to the proceeds from the sales center were placed in a accounting bucket that distorts some of the expenses. So we're working with Associate to move that into owner's equity, pending getting that moved into the reserve account. And then clubhouse repairs and maintenance, about $56,000 was incorrectly listed in repairs and should have been put into a different bucket for the clubhouse furniture upgrade that was approved. Moving on to the next chart.
Okay.
Do we have it up?
Yes.
Major expenses, yes, huh?
Yes, okay. So if you look at our expenses, our expense categories, the 8 of the expenses account for about 90% of the budget in terms of dollar value. And so I look at those as one group in terms of having the most impact on the overall health of our budget. And as I mentioned, I'll work from the bottom comment first. Repairs and maintenance is showing red, not because repairs and maintenance is physically out of whack. It's because the expenses for the sales center were put into that bucket incorrectly. So that's made a distortion there. So if you take that out of the equation, if you take that out of the analysis, repairs and maintenance is actually in pretty decent shape right now. The one area that we are seeing a true uptick in expenses beyond the budget is in landscaping. The general manager has mentioned it at least a couple times that that's something that needs to be looked at. Some of the things that we need to do is try to compare what is happening to the original budget assumptions to see if the what's changed from those assumptions, and also really started to do a deep dive into the specific invoices and look at the charge increases, like, for example, seeing fuel surcharges and other type things creeping in that are starting to impact the expenses. Next chart, please. So the other expense categories comprise the remaining 10%. Here again, we're in pretty decent shape with these. Professional services looks out of whack because the proceeds from the sales of the proceeds from the sales center sale were put into an expense category. That's why it looks out of whack there. Other than that, we're in pretty good shape. We have one line item, irrigation, which we believe has been incorporated into other categories as part of the transition from First Services to Associa. And I'm just working with the Associa accounting people to make sure that that's correct. And also trying to understand why we've got this slight uptick in taxes and try to understand what's driving that right now. But that's, in terms of percentage impacting the budget, that's a relatively small impact at this point. Moving to the second last chart, the balance sheet.
You want the next chart?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm slow.
No problem.
There you go. It's up.
So as you look at our balance sheet, and obviously I should put the caveat there, these are unaudited balance sheet numbers, seem to be in relatively good shape. The uptick in liabilities is due to deferred revenue, and that is we received our quarterly payments in July, and the August and September portion of it has to be treated as liability till those months actually occur. But by and large, we're in pretty good shape there. Last chart, please.
You're gonna need a better operator next time.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay, so here is a quick summary of our reserve balance sheet. Just in terms of, so we can track in terms of at the top line, the numbers are consistent. That we will see a slight uptick in that as we go into the August financials, when the proceeds from the sales center are put into it and put into the account. But here again, we're in good shape. The reserve income loss of $27,000 is the expenses associated with the CIT accounts, which will obviously be going away. And that is a quick summary of the financials. The Finance Committee has been, will be looking to add a new member to the committee. So if anyone's interested, please have them reach out to me and we can start the vetting process for that. And when I'm back in town, I obviously would love to get any feedback on the format for providing the financial summary to the community.
Any questions? Okay, Bill, did you want to move on to the approval process for invoicing?
Yes. All right. Let me move that on. Let me just switch to that real quick. Okay, so we are looking at a cash management resolution. With that resolution, that was prepared by resident in conjunction with our with Kathleen, our president, to put some structure in place regarding invoice controls. And the text of the proposed resolution on cash management is as follows. The general manager may authorize payment from operating funds of any invoice of not more than $5,000, so long as the payment would not cause the annual budgeted amount for the line item in question to be exceeded. The president, with concurrence of the treasurer, may authorize payment of invoices of not more than $20,000, so long as the payment would not cause the annual amount for the line item in question to be exceeded. The second part of the resolution is board approval is required for the payment of any invoice which exceeds $20,000 or would cause the annual budgeted amount for the line item in question to be exceeded, or all off-budget expenditures, that is, operating expenses which were not anticipated in the budget. The third portion of the resolution is the general manager's report at the board meeting shall include the identification of any line items which are likely to exceed the annual budgeted limit if the current rate of spending continues through year end, and B, recommended actions to bring spending back in line if possible. The Finance Committee went through these, discussed these with Kathleen and David, the authors of the resolution, and we voted unanimously to recommend adoption of these resolutions. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You say anything greater than $20,000 or would affect the line item would require board approval. We have contracts, for instance, some of our landscape contracts are $70,000 or more a month. Are we saying that has to go to the board for approval? Will we write that check? Or shall we say contractual obligations?
If it exceeds $20,000 or would cause the annual budgeted amount for the line item in question to be exceeded.
I understand, but it does exceed 20 grand.
But no, it's an or. So if it exceeds $20,000, or if it is greater than the amount that's budgeted for the line item. So in the case of landscaping, if we budgeted $70,000 a month for it, that would be covered under the second clause. If they came back with $150,000, then we would have to go and look at that and discuss that at the board level before we agreed to pay that invoice.
Okay. I just don't want to delay payment of regular invoices and get us in trouble on late fees.
No, I agree. I mean, we're not trying to put undue burden on the invoice paying process. What we're trying to do is to get visibility on invoices that come to us that are out of step with the budget.
Okay.
So think of it as that, we're trying to, instead of just, paying these off, we're trying to say, okay, we're forcing a discussion on it so that we can have more of an early warning system on what is going on if any one of these items is starting to, go off the deep end.
Are we to vote on this now? Is that it?
Yeah. So do you want to do you need it restated? That was the motion, but it's up to you. Do you want it restated?
That might be a good idea, to have him restate.
Okay. Bill, why don't you restate it as a motion?
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we accept the proposed resolution for cash management. The resolution is as follows. There's three parts to it, A, B, and C. Part A, the general manager may authorize payment from operating funds of any invoice not more than $5,000, so long as the payment would not cause the annual budgeted amount for the line item in question to be exceeded. The president, with the concurrence of the treasurer, may authorize payment of invoices of not more than $20,000, so long as the payment would not cause the annual amount for the line item in question to be exceeded. Part B, board approval is required for the payment of any invoice which A, exceeds $20,000 or would cause the annual budgeted amount for the line item in question to be exceeded, or C, all off-budget expenditures, that is, operating expenses which were not anticipated in the budget. Part C, the journal manager's report at board meetings shall include A, the identification of any line items which are likely to exceed their annual budgeted limit if the current rate of spending continues through year end, and B, recommend action to bring spending back in line if possible.
I second it.
Any discussion, concerns? Grady?
No concerns, Kathleen. I think that's a good move.
Okay.
Good work. I think good work.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 This is great. Aye.
Thank you, Bill.
This is Bill. I say aye.
Okay, good. It passed. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, next up is Covenants Committee Resolution for residents with outstanding assessments after 90 days and violation fines that are due after day 5 of the hearing. Currently, we have approximately $2,000 outstanding in fines, and over 90 days for other would be roughly $50,000. So the motion that has been recommended is residents with outstanding assessments and fines will have suspension of all amenities and automatic access for their gate entry suspended. Residents will need to enter through the guest entrance, effective immediately. Future suspensions will begin the 90th day after assessments are due and after day 5 for the fines to be due. The suspension will be removed once resident pays all past due monies in full. And that's the motion.
This is Grady. I would second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or question?
Yes,
Marilyn?
Yes, I have. Let me see if this is on. I have long thought that our codes needed to be changed, to be updated. I went through all of the violations. I agree when there are driveways that need to be cleaned or roofs that need to be cleaned or houses that are dirty, they need either painting or to be cleaned. I find those acceptable to issue a violation. I went through all of these. There were 14 on decorations, 2 flags, and 2 basketball hoops. And so I'm going to vote no on those. However, I want to address it.
Marilyn, I haven't done that part yet. This is just on that motion.
Just on it.
And
we're
then,
not there.
Then I'll reintroduce. I knew you were.
It's number J?
Yes.
Yeah. Where I can speak to it is number J? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'll withhold my comments until then.
Well, actually, if you need to leave, I can do that now.
I would appreciate it.
No problem. Okay. So right now on the motion that was seconded, are there any questions?
Okay, can I make sure that what we're voting on is what I believe it to be? That the amenities and gate access are withheld immediately? Is
Automatic gate access. Because we can't,
No, going through the visitor.
the automatic, right, they have to go through the visitor.
I have no problem with that.
I have a kind of a legal question, and that is, particularly in that lawyer meeting we went to the other day, we cannot really stop egress from our community. Are we allowing sufficient entry and egress after pulling away their privilege except by coming in as a guest?
They still have access, yeah.
As long as they can access, you're okay. That's pretty severe.
I mean, it's been done before. We're just
Okay. All right.
making a motion to make it.
To make it official.
Yeah.
make it
I was
standard.
just wondering if we were doing it legally, that's all.
They're still coming in. I mean, they're still using the visitors, or
Yeah.
so, and it's been done. So.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Mr. Grady, aye.
This is Bill. Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, since we're on the covenants, let me go through. Has the board had ample opportunity to look at the second letter sent for violations? I'll go through it. There's a lot. Let's see, we do have a resident that had removed littorals. Littorals cannot be removed because they are part of the lake preservation. So there is a fine that I'm recommending be assessed for that, in addition to charging the resident to have littorals placed back in place. And I have not received or heard back on that bid as of yet as to how much that would be. But we do believe that the resident is responsible for that. On that one item, I'd like to pause and ask for approval on that, or any comments against it.
That one resident, you mean?
Yeah, just that one subject,
Yeah,
because it's a different fine. It's the $100 fine plus replacing littorals.
Okay, no fine, just replacing the littorals. Is
fine
that
and
correct?
replacing.
Fine and replacing the
Fine
littorals.
and?
They're actually breaking the law.
I don't agree with the fine if they did it without understanding how important it is to keep them. I don't know the extent of the knowledge of the homeowner that removed them. Have you talked with them? Has somebody talked with them?
No.
That's a reasonable question, and I was going to bring it up in the Lakes Committee, Lake Report, but now the issue's here. Everybody knows what littorals are. It's not just plants. It's the edge around the waterway, all right? And it's normally thought of as plants. Those plants are extremely important. They help prevent erosion, and they also absorb the nutrients that get runoff from our lawns. So this lady, I think, took them out because it was blocking her view and the kids couldn't fish. Well, you can't do that. I mean, I'd appeal to everybody to live with those, and in fact, we want to plant more of them in order to protect our lakes. So just make sure everybody knows those are very important things to keep. Right. And I don't mind finding $100, but I think they're actually in violation of a city ordinance, or certainly South Florida. No.
I'm not making a formal motion, but I'm asking as covenants for this one particular topic. Are you in agreement, is the board in agreement with fining for $100 in addition to having the resident pay for littorals to be replanted? Thank you. Anybody second? Thank you. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 This is Bill. Aye.
Thank you, Bill. Grady?
Aye.
And Marilyn against.
Again.
That's okay. Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, moving on. Account number ending in 5806, driveway and disrepair. 3730, weeds and driveway. 0898, dirty driveway. 1334, dirty driveway. 1321, dirty driveway. 542, oil stains and driveway. 6724, mold and mildew and driveway. 6371, dirty driveway, 6698, I'm going to name the rest off, 66, they're all driveway.
Could I make a recommendation?
Yes,
Could I make
please.
a recommendation that we kind of do this in one big approval unless there's any exceptions to what we've been providing?
That's why I asked if everybody had read
I
to
think we
make
could
sure.
do that by category, but if we blanket everybody, we're gonna find the people that Maryland says should be excused.
I would like to do it by category, but they're kind of scattered. But
Take it on an exception basis. I'll put money in the bucket later, okay? I would suggest we do this all at once unless there's an exception like Marilyn has brought out that she would like to bring out, but quite frankly, I think going through 4 pages of dirty driveways is common sense that they should just
Right.
be handled appropriately.
But your point of flags and basketball hoops, you don't think they should be fined, is that right, Marilyn?
And there's 9 pages of these, which is significant. And so consequently, I do agree with Todd that a motion be made to accept those that have to do with driveways, and the painting of a house was one of them. Anything that requires maintenance on the property, I think is valid. I have long had a problem with decorations being fined. It's been some months ago with the last code enforcement individual citing everybody on Anguilla, and I walked that street and talked to everybody, and there were only 2 individuals out of that whole street that didn't get a letter saying they were not in compliance. So something's wrong with our codes if that many people are not in compliance. So I would like for Grady to have an ad hoc committee to look at what our codes are. There should not be fines for decorations in one's yard. If, in fact, I lived in military housing for a long time, and nobody did anything to decorate because how long were they going to be there? I thought it was really nice that people took an interest to put a decoration in their yard, to make it different, for them to be able to do this, I think should be allowed. When you look at our neighbors next to us, Cape Royal, I have a meeting there every month. And as I drive through to their golf clubhouse to attend that meeting, I paid attention to what was in the yards. I would say over half would have a violation based on our codes. And these are homes that start at 500,000 to multi-millions of dollars. And what sets them apart and makes them nice, in addition to the fact that they're on a golf course, is the fact that they're able to put decorations in their yard, bird baths and other things, benches. These things I don't find offensive. It's when you have cookie cutter housing where everybody's house looks the same, it doesn't increase the value. It rather decreases rather than increases. So I would like to have an ad hoc committee look at the codes, but in the meantime, I would like to exempt the people that have decorations. Also, there were 2 in here that they had not received a flag approval. I have a neighbor across the street that has a Ukrainian flag because her daughter-in-law is Ukrainian. I don't find it offensive. And yet somebody's receiving a letter telling them they can't do this. I also have a problem with the basketball hoops. I don't have children that live with me. I don't have grandchildren living with me. But I think if we provide something for our children to do that is wholesome and good activity, we should not be discouraging it. So I'm going to vote no on the 14 items for decorations, the 2 on the flags, and the 2 on the basketball hoops. And I know that everybody else is probably going to vote for everything, but I just can't do it because I don't believe in it.
Let's make that into a motion. I move that we exclude, for this purpose, those items you described, which are flags, basketball hoops, and lawn decorations, for purposes of this fine. And that we give this mission to our art committee to take a look at, or for Grady to get an ad hoc committee. That's my motion.
I second it.
Did I hear Stan second?
Yeah.
I have a couple of comments. This is a slippery slope. And I thought we had already addressed stuff in the yard
We did.
Previously. And maybe you could refresh our memories on that because I surely can't remember. This is extremely subjective, and it places compliance in a very, very difficult spot. If that's the case, then as you recommended, the compliance or the covenants folks need to consider revising the docs to make it look the way you want it to look. My only comment is that the definition, there's a couple of houses that I drive by that look like frat houses, because they have their alma mater plastered all over the house, both in the front and the back. To me, that's the slippery slope. If it's classy and there's a definition, a well-defined view of what this should look like, all for it. But I just think that it's a huge slippery slope and it needs to be more well-defined. That's my comment.
But my reason for the motion is not to make a permanent exception, but we make an exception now if there's a question, and we put this to committee to come up with a set of rules that we like. Is that reasonable?
I want to second what Todd is talking about. We did discuss this previously, and the solution that we already came up with as a board was to let compliance know that we're not going to be fining on lawn ornaments. I'm talking about the small flags. I'm not talking about the raised flags on poles. It's a different story. And to let those go by as long as they remain in good condition and are not obtrusive. And that's where we had let this. Any that are on this sheet to be fined as a second letter, I was assured and discussed with Chris, and the committee agreed that any that were over 3 feet tall, that were in disrepair, were going to receive a letter to fine to have it removed. And they had the opportunity to remove it, not just once. They got a friendly letter. They got the second letter, and then he went out, and it still remains, those items.
So clarification, so these are exceptions to what we reviewed a couple of months ago, and these are still out of compliance to that revision. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right.
Okay, can I?
This is Grady. If nobody has a comment, I would like to hear what the motion was again, please.
The motion is to exclude those items on this list for lawn ornaments, flags, and basketball hoops.
Okay, well, then I'd like to make a couple of comments. From an ARC standpoint, what you're doing by making that motion is you are unraveling or undoing the commitment to the guidelines that we already have in place or the standards that we already have in place. To Kathleen's point, people are being given an opportunity to have a friendly reminder, this is not acceptable and this doesn't fit within the guidelines. You're being given a second opportunity to recognize that and to have that taken down. If we're going to be talking about making changes to this, We can't just make a motion to make a change to these standards now, because we're going to take the feet out from under the compliance team and what they're trying to do. The onus or the responsibility is going to have to be on the resident to temporarily abide by the removal of any of these items until we have, as Marilyn suggested, an ad hoc committee that can go through and individually approve these items to be put back in place. The key that we have here is that we have so many residents going along and going, oh, well, they look like they've got what they want, so I'm going to do the same thing. We have to stop this somewhere, and it has to be here. We have to give the guidelines or the standards the teeth that it needs to have. We need to let our compliance team put out these notifications that say, this is not acceptable, you need to remove it. In the event that they disagree with that removal, they're more than welcome to come to the team and let them know we'd like this reconsidered. And we have a very open mind. As you guys know, we've had these come before the board before, and we've approved exceptions. But if we're going to start taking the teeth out of the compliance team now, and we're going to start removing what we've already chosen as standards at the board meeting, I think that we're setting ourselves up for a problem. I completely disagree. This should not be considered as something that we're allowing as an exception. These people need to remove these unacceptable items, and then they have to go through the process of getting an exception just like everyone else does. And if that exception is approved, then they can have it, and we can add that to our standards later.
Thank you, Grady.
Can I?
Yeah, Marilyn, sure.
Since this HOA board is the final authority, any committee makes recommendations, but it's up to this board to take the final action. So even
Absolutely.
though I know Grady believes that we should not allow exceptions and that we need to move forward with an ad hoc committee, which I don't believe should be just our committee, I believe we need others involved. If I remember correctly, when this came up, when I made statements in the past with this room almost full, when I made the statement that our codes were too strict, that we needed to address changes, there was all kinds of applause. That tells me I was saying what the residents wanted to hear. So consequently, there's no reason why we can't exclude something rather than making these residents feel badly about the fact that they have decorated their home. I don't see it. And
Marilyn, this is Grady. With all due respect, the decorations that you're referring to don't meet the guidelines and or the standards that were set that these residents are supposed to know about and understand prior to making any changes outside their home. This has become almost an epidemic with residents just deciding that they're going to do what they want to do, and they put in a sidewalk between their home. They put in a pool without getting authorization. They do whatever they want without authorization. This is not just basketball hoops or fake plants being put outside. This issue is very difficult for people to understand. But as you go down some of these streets and you look at some of the things that have been done, it becomes very apparent that people are literally thumbing their nose. And I apologize. I do sympathize and I completely empathize with people wanting to personalize their home, but there have to be limits. And if we're going to change those limits, we need to do it in a controlled fashion. And I don't think this is the way to do it. I apologize. I disagree with you, Mary.
Brady, we're just going to have to agree to disagree because these residents live here. You're saying they're thumbing their nose to our rules. If you have a street where only 2 people don't receive a letter of violation, there's something wrong with our codes. These residents pay assessments
how do you know that there are only 2 people
here.
that are receiving those violations?
Can I ask a question real quick? What's the issue with the basketball courts?
Well,
Forget the decorations. What's the issue with the basketball courts?
The basketball goals are not allowed if they're a temporary setup. Those have to be placed in a cement setting in the ground next to the sidewalk. I mean, next to the driveway.
Right. Last time I'm sorry, Grady. Go ahead.
For that.
Yeah. Last time I read that, though, I thought you could have a temporary one as long as you brought it in every day.
Oh, absolutely, you can.
Yeah.
But
These are ones
the
that are
issue
being
has
left out.
become that a lot of people don't bring them in every day.
Well, yeah,
And that
because
becomes-
they're filled with sand or water, and kids are out playing. I mean, my point is that, you know, there are some rules that need to be revamped, such as the basketball court that has to be brought in every day by little Johnny, who's 10 years old, who can't do it.
No, and I completely agree with you. But by making an exception at the board meeting, you're sidestepping the standards that we've set in place.
Right. So what do you do?
If we're going to,
So what's the next step? Let's fix this and.
Right. Well, just like the lady who came in and got her roof approved with the color of her home. If someone applies for a change to the outside of their home and it's not approved by the ARC, they have the opportunity to bring that before the board to make that change and request that it be done. And then we can address it then. But making the exception beforehand is, I'm telling you, it can be a board decision, but unless you have really been looking at the applications that have been coming through and then you've been seeing what has not been applied for and the changes have been being made, you're not going to appreciate what's actually going to happen.
I think we've had enough. We understand everybody's position. Why don't we vote and see what the board wants to do?
Okay, I'm good with that. Let's take a vote as to your motion. Was the motion seconded by you? We had discussion, no further discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay.
Me?
This
Nay.
is Grady. Nay.
Nay.
This is Bill. Nay.
And myself, nay.
Motion defeated.
Okay. So we have gate strikes. In addition to the $100 fine on the gate strikes, there were 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think we object to fining them, but we also, last time I mentioned a $50 fee. The video fee is $75, and I feel, not me, that we discussed in the past that $50 would be applied. It's now $75 would be applied to the fine. For every gate strike, there's a video, and we're charged for it from Envera.
It just went up to 75 from 50, or that was?
I'm not sure at what point that went, but that's what I'm being told is the number now.
I just don't get it. I'm sorry. Every time I get a video that I can't watch because I got to go through Dropbox and they're charging $75 a pop. I mean, maybe they can just deliver it to my house real nice for that much. I mean,
I understand the question.
The question
It's a lot
is,
of
the
money.
fee used to be $50 for the video, it's now $75. So the fine would be a $100 fine for the gate strike. There were no damages to the gate or the arm bar with any of these violations, strikes. So there's no
How do I
fee
get
for
the
that.
addresses
But they need to
so
be
that I
charged for the
objected
video
to?
fee of $75. Otherwise, the HOA eats that.
Shall I mark them and
You're
give
saying
it
the
to
75 and the 100, or just
Correct.
100, or just 100?
$175 versus what used to be $150.
May I make a suggestion that we make that the $100 fine plus whatever our
I see
costs
it.
are?
I agree with that.
I agree with Todd. Yeah. Does that need a motion?
I would make that in the form of a motion. It's a $100 fine for a gate strike plus whatever our costs are.
Second.
Anybody have questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, that's it with.
This is Grady. Aye.
Oh, sorry, Bill. I forgot about you too. Okay, that's it for covenants. So we will move on now. Lost my agenda.
Are we going to vote on these fines?
I'm sorry.
Are we
On what?
voting on these fines?
I thought we did. Did we
No,
vote?
we didn't. We never
I
did.
apologize. I apologize. apologize. We voted
We
against
voted on
it. That's where I
exception,
thought.
but we didn't vote on the fines.
Okay, so let's have a vote on the fines. I don't usually do a motion on the fines. We just vote to accept or not. So, dirty roofs, driveways, mulch issues, everything that is in these papers. We moving to accept?
Yes.
$100 fines? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Bill and Grady?
This is Grady. Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to committee reports. Marilyn, anything on social and communications?
Okay, and you're doing this so that I can leave a few minutes early,
Yes.
and I appreciate that because I double booked for tonight. The first committee is the social committee, and we did meet last week. It was a very healthy, long meeting. Lauren did a very good job in being involved and with her recommendations. And the high points were, we talked about the Halloween event and the volunteers that are needed. There's a community garage sale on November 12th. We talked about the winter holiday activities, Hanukkah and Christmas. Lauren indicated that she has a great deal of knowledge in how to prepare a budget. So the committee left it to her to do, to get it to the finance committee. Snacks after school, there's already been action taken. I think everybody perhaps saw it on their website or on their emails. And food trucks, 2 a month until October, and then it will be weekly. Let's see, and the pool updates, and we've already heard about that. So that really takes care of the social committee report. My next report is the communications committee. And we have the charter that needs to be approved, which I will do after, I'll make the motion to approve it after giving their report. The committee believes and wants to take the responsibility for updating the general Live Sandoval website. They also are recommending updates to Town Square also be done to Live Sandoval. The committee recommends the Architectural Review Committee rules and regulations be incorporated into the resident handbook. And lastly is the recommendation that the board president and vice president be given access to the Facebook page, the official Facebook page, so that they can post official announcements to the residents, especially during non-business hours. It is also their recommendation that a communication be sent to the residents informing them that Sandoval Cape Coral is the only Facebook page that contains official community information. And that they covered a lot within their hour. And that is their report. And perhaps this report should go to everybody on the board to look at the recommendations, to look at their recommendations and follow through next month after considering them.
So to table that?
Yes,
what
yes.
you would like to
yes.
next month, that's fine.
But I would like to make a motion to accept their charter, and it will be also posted to Town Square and to
Live
the
Sandoval.
Facebook, or to the
Live Sandoval website.
Live Sandoval website. Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the charter?
Aye.
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 And Bill and Grady? Go ahead.
This is Grady. Aye.
Thank you.
This is Bill. Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Marilyn. Is that it for both? Is that it? For
Yes,
both? Okay,
that's
good.
it.
You're good to go.
Thank
Thank you, Marilyn. Okay. Landscaping, Grady, you're up.
Thank you very much. To the residents as a whole, I would just like you to know that the landscaping team is a dynamic group of people. We've added some additional folks. They continue to focus on and drill down on each and every street, each and every island, and they're a great group of people that have a focus. They're doing the great things for the community. I've personally been sidelined for a couple of months, but they have taken on the direction and they have continued moving. John Elkins and his wife, Lynn has joined the committee, and John has stepped in on my behalf and kept that organization going. They continue to serve the community. They're doing great things. I just want everyone to know how much we should appreciate what those volunteers are doing for the community. I think that there is some additional information coming soon. There should be a survey coming out for just the DTE affected residents. So keep an eye out for that. Once that has been received, we should be able to get a decision made on what vendor will be working on what sections. I know that sounds like an easy solution, but there are a lot of moving parts to it, and we just haven't been able to nail it down as yet. But again, thank you very much to the landscaping team. I appreciate your efforts.
Great.
And that's all from the landscaping team.
Great. John,
yes.
on landscaping, I just want to make sure people, when they get that survey that's going to be coming out, please respond to it. Those of us that are being serviced by DTE, the 613 homes, because that survey will help us in our negotiation with DTE. It's a very short survey. Just make sure you look at it and respond to it, please. Okay.
Absolutely. It's meant to be a constructive criticism, but share your information. But just remember that they're looking for your feedback. They're not looking for personal stories of woe. We have many and many of those. But just know that the landscape committee has a number of DTE represented residents that are there, and they're aware of what's going on, and they have your best interest at heart. Again, thank you, John. For the art committee, I have to say the same. The art committee has gone through a number of iterations from the last 4 or 5 years, and that team has worked very, very hard to improve the standards, to change the standards, to update the standards, and to keep moving forward. It's not an easy process, and I know that it's a headache for a lot of people, but my thank you goes out to the members of that team and the new people that have joined. Very bright people, and they've got a great direction, and I hope that they continue. Again, I've been sidelined for a couple of months, but they haven't let that slow them down. They continue to work for the residents. So I just want everyone to recognize they're a group of people that work really well for us, and I very much appreciate what they've done. That's it for landscape and ARC. Typically, we have a number of changes, but this time we don't. We've been working on internal things, and you'll hear from us within the next month.
Thank you, Grady. Amenities and gyms, Stan?
Should be amenities and safety and security, or amenities and gym is the same thing, right?
You could do both. Securities is not on here, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
The gates are going to be open from 6:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. to alleviate on traffic for schools going in and out. So I believe it started yesterday from what I saw, so that's good. Kathleen already went over all the pool stuff, so I'm going to jump over that. The fitness center's done. All the equipment's in there. We're just waiting on 250 pounds of plates for the Smith machine. It's nice and busy. I love it. So, a lot of positive comments, a couple negative, but But yeah, I'm glad that's done. And it's nice and busy, you know, so people like it. So good stuff. Bocce has a meeting on Monday to hopefully be done and construction can start, from my understanding. They're going to do a walkthrough and get everything done, and this goes here, that goes there, and then it should start right away. So that's awesome. Thanks, Rob, by the way, and everybody else that's involved. I got to look this up.
Miami home run.
I'm sorry, I should have had this pulled up on the... All right. In reference to Cape Coral Police patrolling Sandoval, the Safety and Security Committee confirmed that the Cape Coral Police Department is willing and able to patrol and issue motor vehicle violations inside the gates of Sandoval on our private roadways. There are a couple of rules and regulations that were brought up by CCPD that hamper us from moving forward. The main issue that we're facing is to get the speed limit and speed limit signs up to city standards by raising the speed limit from 24 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour. This would defeat the purpose of slowing the vehicles down. Also, per Florida statute, a motor vehicle summons may not be written unless said vehicle is speeding more than 5 miles an hour over the posted speed signs. This would put the vehicle traveling in the neighborhood at 36 miles an hour before they get a summons that is held up in court. So that's where that is. Okay? Going from 24 miles an hour posted speed limit to 36 mile an hour enforcement does not seem like a rational move. So although the police department can patrol our streets, it looks like an uphill battle in that aspect. I mean, we're just going to be racing this. It doesn't make any sense. We all get it. So we'll be looking into global security for speed enforcement and see how they can be utilized. Global previously stated that they're able to take on this task. So if Global can do it, we're working, Safety and Security is working on it and see if they can do it, and we'll go from there. On a brighter note, the crosswalk signs for pedestrians, they were installed, and from what I personally noticed, they're working. I mean, I see the walkways now. Before, you know, I was pumping the brakes. People are coming from what I thought was the middle of the woods, but it was the pathway, the walkway. So those signs were great. So they did a really good job, the Safety and Security, in pushing for those, and I like those things. They're great. The vehicles are slowing down, and the crosswalks are finally visible. Thanks for Brian, because he installed all of them, and they've been hit. And I personally stopped, and they're tough. So that's where we are with the whole shebang.
You don't talk about global anymore?
We can talk.
Well, I mean, the report seems to be getting skinny.
Yeah.
And do you know why they're not towing cars? Is it because the towing company's not there, or why are we not seeing more tows?
We have not been having many cars parked recently.
Okay.
And there was one employee that it was addressed, one global security officer that it was addressed that was not aware of anything past putting a ticket on people's cars. Now they're aware.
Okay, but once he calls for a tow.
Yes, we have not had
problems.
problems.
Does he wait for the tow to see that it happened, or you just call and go home? How's that work?
No, from what I got from Dan, the owner, is that they'll call and they'll have the towing company respond. They don't stay there with it. Okay. And they're supposed to go back and check to make sure that the car is either off the roadway or towed. It was our past practice to have somebody, general manager or somebody else, call the towing company to see if they indeed towed the car that was in the report from the previous night, and then go from there. That's why it happened before. I don't know if we've done it ever since, but that's what I feel should be done. Somebody
do it at least for a while, right?
Well, I think it should be done every day. If Global Security says that they call towing and, you know, either they towed it or not, somebody needs to call the towing company and say, hey, did you respond? Did you tow it? Yes or no? Simple. You know, did Global call you? Just 3 simple questions. Did you get the phone call from Global? Did you tow it? Why not? Or great. Okay. Actually, 2 questions. So If we can get that done, that's the only system that seems to be working, and that'll keep Global on their toes and also the towing company on their toes, because we need to check up on them. Not checking up on companies, they just pretty much do whatever they want anyway. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Tomorrow.
And Chuck will be meeting with them tomorrow, the owner. Okay. Anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay. Lakes, John, you're up.
Thank you. Well, as mentioned before, the littorals are important. I won't do that again, but please don't tear out your plants. Now, we have an excellent pond watch group in Sandoval. They're volunteers. They work tirelessly. Every month they go out and sample our ponds. Okay, they've been doing 3 per month. Mary's been kind of running it now, Mary Manville, and she has a team with Pete and so forth, and his wife, Jean. Ernesto, he's the guy that collects all these things from us. He's asked that we do the entire set of ponds of lakes next month. So our group needs help. Anybody who would be willing to help sample next month, please let me or Mary Manville know that you're willing to help, because that's a lot of ponds. Rather than 23, we're going to do 5? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So help us, please.
Thank you. Okay, neighborhood reps, I placed charter for our committee out. If there's any objection, I'd like to make a motion to accept the neighborhood rep charter as written.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of accepting it?
Aye.
Aye.
Bill and Grady?
This is Bill. Aye.
Thank you. Grady? Okay, well, majority has it.
Sorry.
There he is.
No, this is Grady. I was
Thank
on
you.
mute. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. That's okay. Now I'm going to give you the list of all of our neighborhood reps. I'm going to go through quickly so that we can have them approved by the board to be on the committee. We still have needs, and Bellingham is one of the streets. Casabari, Cayen, and Lavaca, and Sunvale. So we have Ted Durr, Lou Natali, John Hart, Elaine Stolbaum, Ruthie Chiger, myself as an alternate, Victoria O'Toole, Lynn Berry, Joan Bowen, Pat Allen, Lori Bernard, Peggy Candelori, Suzanne Stelmick, Beth Ann Holze, Rob Zivkovich, Chris Clint, Lisa DePatti, Linda Mooney, Lynn Elkins, Ruthie Marzullo, Arlene Talbot, Joe Flanagan, Jerry Kern, Brian Policiano, Michael Thalberg, Debbie Ott, Stuart Sickler, John Grohl, Lisa Mager, Sean Kinney, and Alice Short. So I make a motion that we accept them as our committee as we continue to build.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Grady and Bill.
Bill, aye.
Thank you.
This is Grady. Aye.
Thank you. We will be meeting, I'm sorry, the minutes were posted already for the last meeting that we had. I did not bring them, I apologize, but they are posted on Town Square and will be or are posted on Sandoval, not yet. They will get there eventually. I'll give you the notes. The next meeting for neighborhood reps is the first Wednesday of September at 7 p.m. Risk management, we did not meet, and I don't have anything to offer for that this month, but there is news coming in regards to some upcoming questions and concerns, so we will be meeting. We have to get that date. And covenants I did, so I'm done. So we'll move on to Bill for Finance Committee. I don't know if there's anything additional as far as the committee report. Okay.
Just a couple of things, Kathleen. One
Sure.
is just want to repeat that we are looking to have another member join us, at least one member join us to backfill with me coming on as treasurer so that we can get a full working committee in place. And so if anyone's interested, I'd like to talk about that. We had a discussion around the concept of using lobby pay for residents.
Yeah.
We looked at the proposed lobby pay solution. We felt that there were some holes in the current lobby pay proposal, and so we requested that the associate go and look at some additional options, including current cash apps such as Venmo, as a solution to try to improve the ability of residents to make their payments at the front desk. I did mention that we're going to talk about we're going to start working on the budget, and the next meeting for the Finance Committee is scheduled for Tuesday, September 20th at 4 o'clock in the Pelican building, and we will be posting our minutes from this week's meeting on Town Square and Sandoval Living within the next couple days.
I have one question I wanted to ask. You had, Mr. Elkins had emailed me questions on legal services. Do you want to discuss that here? Because I pulled up the report and I worked on it for several hours, so I didn't know if there was anything you were looking for. I have things divided out. Okay, very well. All agenda has been fulfilled. We have a question from Associa.
Can we revisit the lobby pay because the fees associated with Associa are less than the fees that were associated with First Service for the pay system that they had in the lobby? And we are processing quite a few checks from Sandoval, which would alleviate Kathy's need to send and to manually process those checks. I can provide more information. There are no other systems that will integrate with C3, which is our database that we accept those payments in.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so
What's the issue?
lobby pay.
For the dues, you mean?
Well, for anything, even if residents want to come up and pay. What was the 25? There was a $25. Oh, for ARC? For ARC applications, residents would like to be able to use it for that, to pay assessments, anything. And so Bill, would you read the fees for that?
Let me bring up that information. Hold on a second.
I recall it being $295 plus 3.5%. So for $25, it would be not worth it.
Are you talking about the fee for processing exceeds what we get?
Well, currently, there's going to be a fee associated with it, but the fee that's associated with it is less than the fee that was with the prior management company. And there was a pay system in the lobby with First Service. And it was used quite a bit, according to Yonley.
Bill, did you have?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the email with the information.
Okay.
Do
you know offhand? No.
Not memorized, but
Yeah.
I mean, there is an initial startup fee because there's the tablet that's purchased that can only be used for lobby pay.
Is that a significant volume of time? Are we spending much time on that now?
I mean, Kathy is spending a significant amount of time processing checks from the residents at Sandoval for events or ARCs.
Okay. So, all right, I've got the email. The details, as I understand it, is that you can set up a tablet for essentially $500 or $700 if we go with an iPad. And then the ongoing cost per year is about $267 per month for the service. There is I'm trying to go through this real quick.
Are you talking about an electronic means of receiving checks? Is that
Yes.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the credit card branch incentive is so
The $295 plus 3.5%.
yeah, it's just trying to go through this email real quick. I apologize.
That's okay. I have it up too. And debit would be just
Okay.
$295, right?
Yeah.
So those are essentially the same fees that they're paying via Town Square.
Okay.
I see. Well, whatever makes sense, if it can be done more expeditiously and cheaper, do it.
Well, it's the only system that works with Associa
Well, then we have to do
C3.
it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we're happy to
All right,
get as
so-
much information as we can and revisit it and come and have another meeting with the finance committee.
Okay.
I can pull a report of who pays on Town Square, their assessments. This is just for all other fees, social fees, ARC fees, deposit fees, things like that, transponder fees. And this has been brought to our attention by Yamali and by Aaron, that a lot of owners are concerned that they used to be able to come in and pay, and they don't like writing checks.
Okay.
Pay with cash?
I'm sorry.
Pay with
So
the pay system.
who is the person speaking right now?
That's Heather with Associa.
So Heather, this is, why don't we have a chat by phone over the next week or so about this, and then we can work on a write-up and then try to get this in front of the finance committee in advance of the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I think some of it was we weren't quite sure we understood the cost and the ongoing obligation that it was going to require. So I think if we just walk through this and then we can get this to the finance committee, we can probably turn this around quickly.
And I just have one additional thing. I just got an email from CIT Bank. They wrote the check for $1.415164 for the reserve. So it's a done deal, and the bank account is closed officially. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That was, whew. All right. We touched base on all items. So I am adjourning the meeting, and we'll open it to the floor if anybody has any questions, concerns that you want to address.
This actually wasn't on the agenda.
I think that's what we're doing now, is not agenda.
I'm from the hip because I didn't know we were going to do this. A while ago, we had talked about, this is with the prior board, as a result of what happened with Amazon, possibly creating a committee so that we could, in advance, meet with perhaps Lee Memorial, see what their plans are, see what our concerns are, so that we can be ahead of the game. We had talked about putting a committee again for that. So I don't know, and I would ask that we see if we can do that. So that was one thing. The other thing, and I keep harassing Bill on this, my concern
You
for
can call me Bill anytime you want.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's okay.
No, I'm not yelling at you. I keep asking you. My concern about the Phase 3 lawsuit as a part of the settlement was that we were going to get ownership of the business center, but we were also going to leave a carve-out for possible litigation for Phase 3. Bill has communicated that probably...
John Elkins.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I gave you a new name. That it probably has to do with the lakes, but I'm not assured of that. And I would like to see something that says what the issues are, since I live in Phase 3. Again, I just think for a matter of transparency that the folks who live in Phase 3, even if it's not particulars, to know that this is something that is continued to be looked at. And basically what I want is for it to be put on the record, whether there's movement or not, because my concern is 3 years from now, we're not going to have, we're not going to know anything because nothing is happening at this point, or that I know is happening. Maybe it is behind the scenes and I'm not aware of it. So that's just a concern that I have. So,
Okay.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, we can't really talk much on that
I
subject.
know we can't talk much about it, but the thing is,
At all.
whenever you enter into legal action, in this case it would not be a lawsuit, it would be arbitration, which is the only vehicle left for that. There's a very important process called due diligence. The due diligence process has not been done, okay? We cannot make a case until we've done that and know exactly what our position is. That requires engineering work and so forth. Once we get that, we can't discuss it with you. But yes, it is. We haven't forgotten it. It's very important, and you can ask me anytime you want, or you can call me Bill.
My concern is that it's not being put on the official record.
What-
I think even if there's nothing to report on, just so that we know that we're not, being pushed aside. It was part of the carve-out for the settlement. So again, we don't know what it is, and I can appreciate, the rules and, for legal.
If you want to continue speaking, please
Oh, I'm
speak
so
up so the
sorry.
other people.
I'm sorry.
I have an audience there that is watching.
Okay, I am so sorry. So my concern is that we never hear anything about it. And I know I can appreciate the fact that lawyers may not be able to disclose information, but that doesn't bar for the community to know and hear that, you guys who live in phase 3, don't worry, we're still processing, we still have something going on with it. We don't know anything that's
I'm not
happening
telling you
with
not
it.
to worry. There's all kinds
But
of
that's
reasons to
not,
worry.
so the only time that I get that from you is not to worry, is if
I didn't say not to worry.
if I'm approaching, if I'm asking the question. And it's a concern that I have, that it's never talked about. So,
Okay.
I can't talk to you about it.
Yep,
no, that's not my point. I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. You don't have to tell me specifics, but the board could say, you know what, it still exists as an issue.
It does.
That's all. See, but we need to know that. And it's, the onus shouldn't be on me to constantly be approaching you, for that. I just think that it should be put on the record, and that perhaps at a meeting.
We can't put it
well,
on
whatever.
record.
At a
We can't.
meeting, the community knows that this is something. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Meeting is
Thank you, everybody, for
officially
coming.
over.
Bring
Thank you.
friends next time.